theyeshiva.net.
Started on Chanukah, a Maamar of the Baal HaTanya in Torah, which begins Rani v'simchi bas tzion ki hineni ba v'shachanti b'soichich ne'um Hashem, which is on page 72. We're holding page 74. I'm just going to give a brief review of the Teichen that we learned till now, and then we'll continue Be'ezer Hashem inside weiter. The pasuk begins. It was the Haftarah of Shabbos Chanukah. Rani v'simchi bas tzion, the daughter of Tzion, you should sing and you should rejoice, you should celebrate, because I'm coming and dwelling among you. And he wanted to know what's the connection between that and Chanukah. L'chayda, it's only the connection between Chanukah starts in the next chapter in the Navi and Zechariah. Why is this said in the Haftarah? So he goes off to start discussing the pasuk in Tehillim. We say every morning in Mizmor L'Soida after Baruch Shamar. Tehillim chapter 100. Tehillim Mizmor Kuf. Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha. Boyu lefanov birinana. At first glance, it seems more or less of a redundancy. Serve Hashem with joy and come before Him with song, with rinana, with music, with singing. Rina v'zimr. The Zohar clarifies and makes sure that we understand that it's not the same idea. Zohar says simcha is in the morning and rinana is at night. Simcha b'tzafra, rinana b'ramsa. Tzafra means morning and ramsa means night. What is the idea? So he says, for this you have to understand the difference between Rani and Simcha, between Boyu Lefonav Birnana versus Ivdu as Hashem b'Simcha. And the Alter Rebbe, the Baal HaTanya, explained that Rinana and Simcha represent two separate models and two separate experiences in Avodas Hashem. The Avodah of the Malachim and really the entire cosmos, we have the Perek Shira, everyone sings. All the animals, all the behemoths, even insects, plants, flowers, trees, the whole world sings. Tzva Hashamayim, everybody sings. The Malachim don't stop singing the whole time. And he says, what does singing come from? Singing always comes from a yearning. When a person has a yearning, and the yearning is very intense, the yearning comes out through music. All music represents yearning, aspiration, pining. Lechzen, in Yiddish it's called lechzen. Nichsef avagam kol sanafshi. I desire something, I yearn for something. I have a very profound craving for something. It comes out in song. And he says the malachim and really the entire world, they yearn to be included in the Ein Sof. They yearn to be submerged in the infinite truth of Hashem. All their life they feel this, and it's non-stop. They don't have any other desires. We have other desires that distract us. I can't say my only desire in life is to be one with God, to have dveikus in Hashem every moment. I have other desires also. We have other desires. The animals and malachim don't have other desires. This is their only desire. They also don't have any other avodah like Torah mitzvahs. They don't have to make the world a better place. They don't have to sanctify the world. They don't have these headaches that Jews have. They don't have an issue of what they like calling tikkun olam. What we say in Aleinu, better, l'sakin olam. But malchus shin daled yud, which is where the expression tikkun olam came from. They just took out the last two words, but malchus shin daled yud, for obvious reasons. So the malachim don't have this other avodah, so therefore they can get away with singing all day. Du bist a malach, so you also get away with it. They can just get away. They can just get away with singing all day. That's it. They don't have any other avodah.
Someone's asking, what does the malach define it in a way that makes sense to the mind? It's like we identify with Torah.
That's a good question. It's one of our virtual participants wants I should define a malach in a way that makes sense. There was once a woman who told her friend that my husband is mamash a malach. So the other one started to cry and she said, I know what you mean, mine is also not a mensch. So when you say malach, when you say malach, it's hard to know, what do you mean by a malach? Generally speaking, the term malach is not a malach like, we would, I guess, describe in our imagination or in children's books. Somebody that has, a winged white creature that flies around, a Lukshan Kugeliter that flies into windows and eats up the Shirayim of Shabbos. There are such types of malachim too, don't get me wrong. But they probably don't sing all day, they do other things. A malach really, I think, is an embodiment of an emotion. A malach, we call it a malach, we like to give things corporal descriptions. But a malach essentially is, imagine every emotion of yours is a person. It's hard to imagine, but imagine every emotion that you have actually becomes a whole person. The emotion has a brain and a whole structure, a whole reality. That's really what a malach is. A malach is an embodiment of an emotion, and the emotion is a very real reality. It's an emotional energy. It says malach Michal is ahava, malach Gavriel is gvura. It's actually an embodiment of an emotion. An emotion is a reality. It's hard to imagine it that way, although some people feel it this way in a very, like an emotion. We say every mitzvah creates a malach, every aveda creates a malach. What does it mean? Every mitzvah creates a malach. What it means is, every person, the way they live their life, they create an energy around them. And every person has a halo. What is it called? A halo? Like a light around them. An aura, yeah. An aura, yeah. It says that when Yaakov came into to Yitzchak to get the brachas, right? So Yitzchak smelled nichnas in my Gan Eden. What does it mean? It means Gan Eden and Gehennim are not created in Olam Haba. They're created in Olam Haza. When a person lives a certain way, they're already in Gehennim. Gehennim around, they create their own Gehennim. They create a certain energy. They create certain angels. Sometimes you can have Malachi Chabola. Sometimes you can have Malachi Noyam. There's an expression, Malachim of sweetness and Malachim of terror. So it's really an emotion. It's a serious emotion that assumes an identity. So Malachim don't operate in the realm that we operate with the physical world. So therefore they could sing. And the singing is always an expression of yearning. Always this yearning for dveikus. That's what Renan is. But he says, nonetheless, this is external. Why is it external? Chitzonius. Because when somebody is with the king in his own chamber, embracing him in an intimate moment, you don't sing about the king. When I sing about you, when I talk about you, it's because there's a distance, and I'm trying to overcome the distance. When you leave the presence of the king, you extol the king. You talk about your relationship. When you're in the midst of a relationship, you don't feel the relationship. You don't talk about a relationship when you're in a relationship. You talk about a relationship when you're outside of a relationship. If you're in a relationship and you start talking about the relationship, it means you're not in the relationship. You're taking a video of the relationship. You're not there. When you're in something, you don't talk about it, you experience it. So therefore, he says, the very concept of renana already represents that there's a distance, there's a void, there's a darkness, there's a craving, there's a yearning, there's a gulf that I'm trying to leap over, trying to jump over. That's what renana always represents. Now, this doesn't mean that he's not maching up, he's not being mevater renana. Relative to what he's going to talk about, a deeper, intimate experience, it's called chitzonius, it's called external. But external here doesn't mean external, superficial, or worthless, or meaningless. Chitzonius here means legabe, truth, legabe pnimius. It's a level of chitzonius. And for this, Barichis, he explains at length the whole concept of Zeicher Rav Tufcha Yabiu, you remember? V'tzitkoscha yiranenu. It's tzitkoscha that causes rinana. Because essentially what he's trying to do is find in Tanakh where the word rinana is used and associate it with this theme. So for this you have to know all the places where rinana is used. So in Asher we have Zeicher Rav Tufcha Yabiu v'tzitkoscha yiranenu. Tzitkoscha is what creates rinana. What is tzitkoscha? So he brings from the Zohar that Tzedek is Malchusa Kadisha, justice, Dina, the Malchusa Dina represents Malchus, and Malchus is what creates Renana. What is Malchus? Malchus and Teres HaNister, and Teres HaKabbalah, and Teres HaChasidus represents the M.O., the fuel that fuels creation. In Ashrei we say, Malchuscha, Malchus kol oilomim umemshaltecha b'chol dor v'dor. So as Dr. Michelle mentioned last night, we have just in this Maamar 3 interpretations. Interpretation number 1 is that your Malchus extends through all the worlds. You have a king who's a king over one country. You have a king who's a king over one company. And you have a king who's a king over one family. And then you have a king who's a king over Kol Olam. That's literal pshat. A deeper pshat is Malchus Malchus Kol Olam. It's only your Malchus that allows there to be worlds And it's only your memshala that allows there to be generations, which is space and time. Because space and time represent finiteness, and the question is, how does infinity communicate finiteness? How does finiteness emerge from infinity? How can something finite really be infinite and yet remain finite? That's the paradox of existence. Are we finite or are we infinite? Are we separate or are we divine? Who are we? And why is it that if we're really divine, we feel so separate and disconnected? The answer is always malchus. Malchus means leadership. And for a melech to be a melech, he first has to always acknowledge otherness. So there's no way Hashem could become a melech if he does not create space for otherness. There's only one problem: infinity excludes otherness. If something is infinite, it excludes otherness. Because if something is limitless, that means there's no reality that is devoid of it. If there's no reality that's devoid of it, there can't be somebody outside of me. Right? Which of course psychologically would create narcissism. If you really believe you're infinite, that means there's nobody who exists outside of you. And if there's nobody who exists outside of you, so then really nobody can exist but you. So they say if you want to drown a narcissist, you put mirrors on the bottom of an ocean. Because if the whole world is a mirror, it means there's nothing outside of me. There was a Yid who once came to the Tzemach Tzedek and he said that everyone talks about him in shul. He says whenever he walks into shul, mitretaf mir, umetum, they step on me everywhere in shul. You know, people walk into a chasen or shul, there's conversations, and they assume that they're talking about that. So he says everybody in shul steps on me. So he says, "Du spreitst dich aus umetum, is vu mitret is es auf dir." Your problem is you extend yourself everywhere, so wherever anybody steps, it's on you. If you would have one place that you would call your own, then nobody would step there on you. Of course, what he was saying is that if you have no space, you call your own, then you need every space to be called your own. Because if you have no space that you can call your own, then every space has to become yours, because there's nowhere that you actually exist. I have to be there, I have to be there. If there's a conversation between two people, somehow I have to be part of the conversation, and if not, I question my very existence. So when a human being starts experiencing this, you're dealing with a very serious situation of narcissism, which can be extremely destructive and very dangerous. Like everything in Klippa, it has a shuir and kedusha. The shuir and kedusha is that the bli gvul of Elokus doesn't allow for existence. So there has to be midas hamalchus. Midas hamalchus is the midah in which God says, I want a relationship. You want a relationship, you need somebody outside of you. You can't have a relationship with yourself. You can't have a relationship with yourself, it's not called a relationship. You can't be married to yourself. So therefore, malchus necessitates otherness. Otherness necessitates an experience of self outside of God. An experience of self outside of God means you experience yourself as finite, not as infinite. In sitkascha, there could be yiranenu. That's where there could be renana, which is overcoming the gulf of finiteness to bridge into the infinity, and that's the song that Malchus creates, and that's what the Zohar means, that renana is always at night. Music is always created by a void. Music is always created by darkness, and that's why the greatest musicians are usually dark people. That's a ha'ara ba'alma. B'chlal musicians that don't experience darkness, usually it's not worth listening to their music.
We discussed in Tzimtzum, like Hashem.
Yeah. It's associated with Tzimtzum. And that's why, what do the Malachim say? Meshars of Shalom Zelazah, Aye Mekayim Kvaida. Aye. They're looking for the place. That is the concept of the darkness, Ramsa, which creates Yiranenu, and that's why there's Boyud, it says in Yeshaya, Nafshi Ivisicha, Ba'alayla. You're my soul, and therefore I crave you. And when do I crave you? I crave you in the night, because there's something I want to leave. I want to go out of my status quo. I want to extricate myself from my comfort zone. There's something disturbing, there's something unsettling that I'm yearning for, that I'm craving for. Like in every niggin, a niggin itself has both. If a person always lives in a state of yearning, they also can't survive. You have to make peace. If you're always unhappy, if you're always discontent, you become an erotic. That's why he always speaks about Ratzi and Shuv, right? What did you call it yesterday? The original Ratzi and Shuv. Existential tension. And then you have to resolve it. That's why every niggin, as he says, there's a niggin of simcha, there's a niggin of miriz, but really every niggin has both. Every niggin, a real niggin has Ratzi, and a real niggin has Shuv. Every niggin. There's a moment in the niggin where you're unsettled, where you're perturbed, where you're yearning for something, and that pays tribute to the angst in the person, the pain in the person. And then a real niggin also has shuv, which is return, resolution, to create peace, which only creates a deeper tension. In a real movement of life, the shuv is always higher than the previous ratzoi, and therefore the ratzoi challenges the previous shuv, and the next shuv is higher than the previous ratzoi. Because what allows you to settle angst has to come from a place that's deeper than the angst. If not, you can't settle it. In other words, the shuv that answers the ratzoi has to come from a place that's deeper than the ratzoi, and therefore could say, despite everything, you could make peace with yourself. And then the ratzoi on that challenges that as well. So it's a constant, it's never-ending song. The song never ends. Right? So any real niggin, any profound niggin has always ratzoi and shuv emes. Every good niggin, there's tension, and then there's resolution. The question is, what comes first? Some niggunim start like this, some niggunim start like this. Any niggin, but it has to be a real niggin, a niggin that was composed by a person with
music,
depth.
they talk about this. In
Yes.
music, they call something a cadence. The cadence in a song is when you can rest, when you reach that point in classical music in particular, when you get that yearning sense and then it settles in.
There's a
That's
shuv.
what they call the cadence, is when they
Right.
resolve the previous tension.
You resolve the problem, which then only gives room for new problems. I'll just give you one example with an actual song that speaks about a song. It's a song that speaks about a song. In Shir HaKavod, that they say in many kehillas, everybody knows, there's Anim Zmidas V'shirim Eroik, Ki Elecha Nafshi Sareg, Nafshi Chamda B'tzel Yadecha L'das Kol Ros Seidecha. Here it's with lyrics. Sometimes it's without lyrics. Without lyrics, it's even deeper. But with lyrics, you can also see it. So it's a niggin about a niggin. Anim Zmiris V'shirim Eroik, Ki Elecha Nafshi Sareg, Nafshi Chamda B'tzel Yadecha L'das Kol Ros Seidecha. So there's a niggin that was composed or taught by the Lubavitcher Rebbe. You probably know it. You know the niggin. So listen to the niggin, and you'll hear right away the two tenuas, and you'll see any real niggin has this. Okay, it starts with ratzoi, it starts with angst, with renana, with a void, but then there's resolution, and then it only leads to a new ratzoi. Anim zemiros v'shirim eroik ki elevacho nafshi sawaroik. Even just the key. Ki elecha. The second stanza is Nafshi chomedo b'tzel yodecho lo das kol ros seidecho. You see, this is the shuv. What is it? So when he taught the niggin, once in Chas he taught this niggin publicly. He explained the niggin. He says the first niggin, there was a Maisa, there was a Yid who Mitzvah Yom Kippur, everyone goes home to eat. And it says in Shulchan Aruch that the day after Yom Kippur, it's an inyan to come early to shul. Noyagin lahashkim lispalo to daven shachris early Yom Kippur. I mean the day after Yom Kippur. So he said there was once a shul, they came early Yom Kippur to daven, and there was somebody on the bimah, he was still in his kittel and talis, and he was singing this niggin Anim Zmidas. Because the intimacy during the Illah was so powerful to him, he couldn't detach himself to go home with Yom Kippur. He wanted to remain in that state of Eilecha Nafshi Sarek. We all know, some of us have a tinge, it doesn't last for too long, and that is that when Yom Kippur finishes, the end of Ne'ilah, and everyone rushes into V'hurachim, there's a certain sense of, I don't know if it's disappointment, but people who are very spiritually sensitive, despite the hunger, don't want it to end. There's a special experience, a relationship by Ne'ilah, you don't want it to end. Baruch Hashem, our appetite usually gets the better of us, and we don't stay in shul that long, despite the Elecha Nafshi Sarek. Somehow we make peace with the food that's waiting at home. But you see, I once heard from the Rebbe. He said, "Why is it that Yid Mitzvah Yom Kippur they rush for Ma'adev? You ever saw the Ma'adev Mitzvah Yom Kippur? It's on fire." So he says they think it's because they're eating. He says the real reason is because the erste mitzvah nach Yom Kippur. The first mitzvah after Yom Kippur is Ma'adev. The first mitzvah after, and you connect to God through a mitzvah, more than through just emotions. So the first mitzvah after Yom Kippur is Maida. That's why Jews rush into Maida. So you can think it's Hazal Limud Schuz, but the emes is it's articulating a deeper dimension of the self, because things have different levels of motivations. So they found this Yid singing Anim's Midas, which was after Yom Kippur. He didn't want to go away from Yom Kippur. That was the Rinana. He knew when you go away from Yom Kippur, it's a whole different experience. So there was a yearning that Yom Kippur should remain with him. L'poyel, there's another avodah, the avodah of Sukkos. Sukkos is different avodah. Sukkos is Amshachim al-Maila Lamata. You got to go down. Yom Kippur you go up. Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur you go up. Sukkos Simchas Torah you got to go down. And then Cheshvan you go, whatever. There's a whole other avodah, Uvdin Dechayel. But the nekuda here is that the rinana of a niggin always comes with a certain darkness, always comes with a certain void. And that's why it says, boyu lefan of birnana. You have to step in. You have to come in, you have to enter, because you're leaving your own space. Then there's a second avodah. What's the second avodah? Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha. Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha is not boyu lefan of birnana. This is the other way around. And that is that Neshamas Yisrael have a separate avodah. Simcha means whenever the internal secrets come out, there's simcha. So simcha comes whenever the Ein Sof comes into this world, comes into your life, you're b'simcha. All simcha comes from the fact that there's a certain revelation of an internal truth, or an internal joy, or an internal reality that comes into your life in a revealed way. That's what creates joy. And that's why when people are joyous, they're much more open. When people are joyous, their pnimius comes out. Things that they usually will conceal comes out. What is that? He says that is that Hashem allows a neshama to experience Him, which the malachim wanted Torah should stay in heaven. But it didn't stay in heaven, it came into earth. That's v'hoyu advarim ha'ela asher anoichi mitzavcha. Anoichi misha anoichi, beyond names. A name represents what? A glimmer of the self. When I speak about people's names, it's never about them. I know you by your name means I only know you by your reputation. I don't know you. Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchus Elolam. And that's why there's V'ahavta Hashem Alokach. V'hoyu advarim eila asher anoichi mitzavcha yom. The first part of Krishma is Renana. But then there's the Simcha. These words of Torah and Mitzvahs capture me. How can they capture me? So this he gave his big yesod, and that is that to define God as spiritual is as idolatrous as to define God as physical. In Hallel we say, the Goyim say, Ramal kol Goyim Hashem al Hashemayim kvoda. God is big, He's exalted, He's heavenly. And the Jews respond, you know nothing about God. Mi ka Hashem Elokeinu amagbihi lashavos. He is beyond being beyond. He is beyond being beyond. Don't turn Him into something that's exalted. Because infinity is really infinite, so therefore hamashpili liras b'shamayim abaretz. He could come down to heaven just like He can come down to earth. Earth and heaven become absolutely one, l'gabi the true Ein Sof. Ruchnius is not closer to the Ein Sof than Gashmius is to the Ein Sof. The question is what type of Gashmius it is and what type of Ruchnius it is. And that's why Torah and mitzvahs are l'chayda physical, but they capture the Anoichi because He is completely beyond Ruchnis and Gashmi, so Shavu, Mash, V'Katan, V'Gadol, and this is the Ivdu as Hashem B'Simcha, but it can only happen if this first boil of fun of Bernana, as the Gemara says, darkness comes before light, V'Reisha Chashucha, V'Hader Nahoyre, V'Hi Erev, V'Hivoyka Yomecher, and that is, if there's no yearning, the answer to the yearning doesn't mean anything. I can give you all the answers in the world. If you don't have the answer doesn't mean anything if you don't have the question. You could be sitting at the most brilliant answer in the world, but if you don't have a question, it doesn't mean anything. So without the Renana, the Ivdu as Hashem B'Simcha is not a conscious experience, because there's no void that the person is trying to overcome. It's clear, yeah? This was a summation of Seif Aleph of the first section of the Maamar, the Kitzur. And then, there's a lot of pratim in each Nekudah, it's the Kitzur. Then from here he says, let's understand what Rani V'Simchi Bastzian is. What's Rani V'Simchi Bastzia? So for this, he says you have to understand what Tzion is. It says, Yimlech Hashem la'olam elakayich Tzion l'dar v'dar halaluk. What's the kind, where does Tzion come in here? Yimlech Hashem la'olam l'dar v'dar. That the Yimlech Hashem la'olam happens somehow through Tzion. What's the concept of Tzion? So he says, Tzion really represents the whole structure of Torah and mitzvahs the way we experience it. Nasa Adam b'tzalmenu kidmusenu. We say we're created in Hashem's image. Hashem doesn't have an image. So the pshat is, it says in Zohar that his image are Ramach Evorim de Malka. The 248 mitzvahs are 248 organs of the king, which means mitzvahs is really a spiritual organism. This means that there's a way of understanding Torah and mitzvahs as a spiritual system. And it's all intricate, just like in a body. There's no limb that's not interwoven with another limb. There's no mitzvah that's not interwoven with another mitzvah. And today we know how deep that is in the DNA. Every single cell has a copy of every single other cell. In other words, every cell has the entire genome, the entire DNA code of the entire organism. That means theoretically, from one cell you can reconstruct an entire body. In each cell you have the whole nekuda, because the entire organism, you have probably 50 trillion cells in your body, 50 trillion cells, and each cell is kolol, it has in it every other cell. That's how the Rakashavra explains. The Gemara says in Masechta Sukkah Daf Chavav, ha'oisik b'mitzvah potem en ha-mitzvah. If you're involved in one mitzvah, you're exempt from other mitzvahs. Al pi pshat, why? Pshat is machlekes rishonim between Tosfos and the Ritva. If it's a ptur, or it's not a ptur, if it's a gedder of a ptur, since you're busy with one mitzvah, we exempt you from another mitzvah. Or no, it's like you're doing the other mitzvah. So the Rakashavra says the vart is that there's a nekuda in mitzvahs where every mitzvah really is every other mitzvah. So ha'oisik b'mitzvah potem en ha-mitzvah, because you're doing the other mitzvah. It's not pshat you're not doing, because you're doing the other mitzvah. If you look at mitzvahs as Ramach Evorim de Malka, from any cell in the body, you have the whole body, you have the whole organism. In every mitzvah, you have really every other nekuda of mitzvah. The same is true in Gemara, in Halacha. The Gemara brings, not a Gemara, to Tosefta in Sanhedrin, or Brais in Sanhedrin Perek Vav. The Brais brings over there a very interesting question of there's a Rebbe giving a shir, and two people have a shaila. One asks le'inyan and one asks shaloi le'inyan. You always have, right, people who ask le'inyan, and then people that reminds them of their shviger's cat, and they start asking the psashayla. So he says, so niskak le'inyan v'shaloi. So you speak to the person who's asking about the inyan. Chachamim say it's not true. Kol ha-Torah inyan echat. The whole Torah is one inyan. That's Tosefta and Sanhedrin. Tosefta Sanhedrin. The whole Torah is one inyan. In other words, you're learning Masechta Rosh Hashanah, Masechta Beitz, and suddenly starts asking a question of menachas, of chulin. It's mamash shmita b'Har Sinai. We're off subject. There's no such a thing off subject. Kol ha-Torah inyan echat. Now, at first glance, it doesn't make sense. Kol ha-Torah inyan echat. Every sukkah has its own mises. That's only when you see it externally. When you get to the underlying structure of it, there's a divine energy that is represented in every sugya, in every halach, and in every mitzvah. And therefore, every mitzvah is every other mitzvah. Of course, you have gedarim, you have zmanim, you have times, you have sugyas. The Gemara says in Shabbos, ki koyi Rebbe b'hai mesechta, it's a shiloh of mesechta achiriti. Rebbe is learning one mesechta, don't start reining him a cup from another mesechta. It could be embarrassing. But that's because people are limited. But the nekuda of Torah is always inyan echad. Because it's really the tselem of Hashem. It's the image of God. But our Torah and mitzvahs, we experience a technical mitzvah. We experience a technical halacha. That's why it's called tzion. What's tzion? Tzion means, you remember? A marker, a monument. When you have a tzion, you say here, tzion ha-mitzuyenes. This is a marker. You should know that in this physical mitzvah, there's infinite energy of Ein Sof. In this halacha, in this sugya, in this Tosfos, in this Rashi, in this pasuk, in this Perek Mishnayos, this is a tzion. It's a tzion for infinite energy. You have to dig, you have to excavate, you have to learn, you have to explore. But it's a tzion. So he speaks about you put on a talis, you put on tzitzis. Talis represents or makif. Tzitzis represents hears or pnimi. Talis represents an energy that hovers over you. That's why a talis doesn't have to be mamash your size. It hovers over you. Tzitzis represents individual strands. It's an internalized energy. Right? It's a different inyan. Our makif represents an infinite energy, so it envelops you completely. You don't say the talis on your shoulder is a different size than the talis on your waist. It's one beged that doesn't even have to fit you completely because it envelops you. Tzitzis represents an individual strand. So here you have two physical dimensions of a mitzvah, but they represent two energies. It's one of the reasons why in Minig Ashkenazim and many Minhagim you put on a talis only after you get married, Because marriage is what allows you to experience an makif, as we learned in the Maamar, Kates and Meraked and Lifnei Akala, while you pick up a kala and a chassan during the wedding. Okay, that's a derech hagav dikavart, but the point is that even the individual details of a mitzvah are at sea and they represent something. And through the Torah and mitzvahs gashmias, you can't skip them over and say, I just have this source. They are the transition, they are what allows the infinite energy to come into a physical world. That's why there's birchas ha-mitzvahs, Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech ha'olam, because the Chazal wanted to make you aware of what you're doing. Baruch comes from the word ha-mavrich es ha-gefen. What's mavrich? Mavrich means you graft the vine, you take the tree, you take one of the branches, you put it in the earth, and a new tree emerges. Baruch Hashem min ha'olam v'ad ha'olam, and that was Yosef's avodah, vayikru lefanov avrech. Yosef was called an avrech. He was the master of integration, of bringing forth the highest realities within the lowest realities. That's the birchas ha-mitzvahs. And that's why Torah, we say, Yimlech Hashem la'olam elokayich tzion l'dor v'dor hallelujah, that for Hashem to come in la'olam and l'dor v'dor in space and time, it happens through tzion. Why does it happen through tzion? Because it's through the mitzvahs and the Torah Gashmias that the Ruchnias translates from Ruchnias to Gashmias, and they become the source for time and space. That's the concept of Birchas HaMitzvahs Baruch Atah Hashem. Yeah. So this is what Tzion represents. We still have to understand what Bas Tzion is, but this is what Tzion represents. Okay, so now let's go further. We'll go inside further. It's clear. Any questions? Okay, so let's go weiter. Page 74, the line starts, Kishayesh isarusa de lasata. It's probably, 15 lines from the top. Kishayesh isarusa de lasata. Huh? 19 lines from the top. Okay. This is covered Yat Kislev. I just want to say one thing for those, especially who are here for the first time. Just 1 minute, I want to tell you something. There's two types of learning Chassidus. One is what you're used to, and that's called Vertlach. Shalashudas Vertlach. A cute word from the Sfas Emes, a nice word from the Dushas Levi, an inspiring word from the Noyam Elimelech, from the Be'er Mayim Chaim, from the Ur HaMeir, from the Keser Shem Tov, from the Magid Var of Liakov, v'chuli v'chuli. The Baal HaTanya had a different mahalach. So very often, in order to appreciate, you have to understand that these are sugyas. They're very serious sugyas, like sugyas and nigla. Just like a person comes to a shir gemara, there's no vertel. It's a sugya. It's a sugya. So sometimes you're waiting to hear, just like what's called the one-liner soundbite. It's a different process. So I encourage you, since it may be new for a lot of people, that if you tune into it and you let it sink in within you, after a while you'll see the difference. But for this you have to be open. You have to be very open, which always requires a certain form of humility. Just wanted to say that. Whenever there's a hisayrus malmata, azay nikra knesses yisrael b'bchinas siyah, v'simin la'oira ruchni anishba v'nemshachba. Whenever there is an arousal from below called isarusa de lasata, hisayrus malmata, then Jewish people are called tzion, meaning you become a marker. You become somebody that's a conduit. When I look at you, I could see that you're a container, you're a conduit for a higher energy that flows through you. Just like the Torah and the mitzvahs down here are really a tzion for the Torah and the mitzvahs up there, which means Torah and mitzvahs is really divine energy that's expressed through our Torah and mitzvahs. Avol begolus nikras bas tzion. The time of exile, the Jewish people are not called tzion, they're called bas tzion. Throughout Tanakh, when you see bas tzion, it's a daughter of tzion. Shirak b'chinas mekabel meb'chinas tzion. Generally, a bas is a daughter, so she's a child of parents. So it represents a mekabel and a feminine mekabel. Mekabel represents a recipient. So in the time of Golus, it's mekabel meb'chinas tzion. What's pshat mekabel from b'chinas tzion? Sometimes it's hard for me to create an arousal. Isarusa l'sata means the inspiration begins from me. Then I wouldn't be called a bas. Then I would be called the father who creates it. A bas means I'm a recipient. I need the inspiration from above. I need you to create something for me. I can't just rely on myself. Whenever there's this harusa de l'sata, you're called tziyah. When you need somebody to inspire you, you're called bas tziyah. It's brought in Zoyar, me'inyan ish mazriyat chila yeledus nekeva. The Peladik Gemara in Masechta Brachas says, Isha ki sazriya v'yolda zachar. Zog the Gemara, Isha mazras tchila yeled zachar. Ish mazriya tchila yeledus nekeva. When the woman, how do you type Isha mazras tchila, Dr. Michelle? Biologically?
I think germinates the only word I can think of.
Okay. When the woman, I'm sure everybody, that's very clear for everybody. When the woman germinates first, gives seed first, the birth is a male. When the man generates the flow first, the orgasmic flow first, the child is female, nekeva. Now, how we understand this biologically and what this means practically, that's a sugya b'fnei atzma. Like every Maamar Chazal, it always begins spiritually. So the Zohar says, Ish Mazriyat Chila means Ish is Hashem, Ish is the Jewish people. Ish Mazriyat Chila, when a man and a woman have a relationship, the question is who inspires whom? Does the Ish inspire the Isha, or does the Isha inspire the Ish? Pashtan Gashmias. Who excites whom? In Ruchnis it's the same thing. That's why it's in Gashmias that way. Ish Mazriyat Chila means God begins the initiation. God invites you into the relationship. What this means practically is you're sitting on your couch, or you're walking in the street, or you wake up one night, and you have a pisa hergish, you have a pisa feeling, something in you comes in. That's ish mazriyat chila. God says, I would like to be close with you. Now, what happens? You let us nekeva. So the birth is a nekeva is bas tziyah. Why? It didn't come from you. You were a recipient. You're somewhat passive in the relationship. You're a recipient of the gift. You're a makabel. You're called a bas. Mashenkin uletziyin yamar ish ve'ish yulad ba. Santa Tzushta. When you have tziyin, not bas tziyin, so we have the pasuk in Tehillim. Uletziyin yamar ish ve'ish yulad ba v'hu yichaynena elyain. Isha mazras tchila. When the isha, the woman, the Jew, creates the orgasmic inspiration first, you led the zachar. Then the birth is a zachar who's p'chinas chasadim, he's a mashpia. He gives, that's his role, to give. So when the Jewish people are in a state of tzion, ish v'ish yulad ba. What's going to be born is an ish, in other words, somebody who creates things, somebody who gives, because you're not bas tzion yitziyah. Dahainu. What does this mean? Bahaktim p'chinas rina v'simcha kanali is boil afon of birnana. B'chinas ranina b'ramso memata l'mayla. When you start with your avoid of rinana, in other words, it's all about your own inspiration. Because you have first the avoid of boil afon of birnana. What's the avoid of boil afon of birnana? You steer darkness in the face, and instead of succumbing to it, you create a song out of it. That's what Rinana is. You stare at darkness, and instead of succumbing to the abyss, you create music out of your darkness. In other words, you use it as a catalyst and a springboard to leap, to jump. That's what Rinana is. So here the inspiration starts from yourself, because you're in a state of darkness. You're in a void. So you could be passive, but you don't do that. You're boyu lefon of Rinana. But Rinana is always in the darkness. In other words, it's starting from you, because you're in the b'china of tziyah. And then you have the state of tziyon, not bas tziyon. This is ish v'ish yulad.
Why when you have the hergish, you say that's the Hashem is the ish over here, and when you have the darkness, it's not Hashem. It's all the same.
No, you mean afilu b'hastura, shebetoich hastura, betoich hastura.
The darkness and the light is the same.
Yeah,
the same shayla.
You're right from the ultimate truth, but from a person's experience. What a person has darkness, all they're dealing with is concealment from their experience. And the person has to find within themselves the tools and the resources to be able to grow from it. Where in another situation of Ish Mazriyat Chila, you're actually given a cotton candy, you're given a flow of inspiration, you're given a flow of light. You're right in Amitis Ha'inyan, the darkness and the light of B'Shava, but in the human experience, here you have to start the process. Because you don't have a revealed source of inspiration. We all know in our lives, there's moments that you have downers. There's moments your mamish feel like, nothing doing, nothing happening, and you have to create the music within yourself. And fakert, from there you can create powerful music because you're overcoming distance. And then there's moments when an arm is stretched out to you and you almost feel that you're being uplifted by something beyond you, by something transcending you. Al davar zeh tiknu psuke de zimra. This is why the Chazal instituted psuke de zimra. Lahaktim shvache shal makom gedei sheyispoil halev. Before really minat Torah, you just have to say Krishma. There's no need for a long davening that we have with brachas and karbonas and hoidu and psukkah de zimra yishtama. You go straight to Krishma. But they wanted that before it, the person should be able to do psukkah de zimra kadei sheyispoil halav. Psukkah de zimra is really music. Zimra is like Renana. Zimra means like shir, shvacha, halal. Zmiris. Zmiris means music, singing. They wanted there should be the music because Psukkah de Zimra is the time to overcome the gulf. You see, when a person wakes up in the morning, a person starts David, I don't know of God. There's no relationship here. A person comes into a world, it's a new day. The singing of Psukkah de Zimra is the work to cross the bridge, to cross the gulf. That's why we start Psukkah de Zimra with this pasuk, Boyu lefonav birnana. You come to him. You're going to be by him by Krishma, by Shemona Esra. But how do you come? You come through Psukkah de Zimra. Mashenke, that's what Psukkah de Zimra is. V'chein yoitzer or v'inyan kedushas hamalachim eich kaifanim b'raj gadol misnasim. Why are we talking about malachim? The whole first bracha of Krishma, we're busy with malachim. Who's talking about malachim? You want to say Krishma? Say Krishma. The whole first bracha is about malachim from beginning to end. You start off, Tizbarich lanetzach tzureinu malkeinu v'galeinu b'yrik doshim yoitzim esharsim Hashem esharsav. A whole thing about the malachim, poischim espiyim b'kedusha of Torah, Shem Makel, Kadosh, Baruch, Lakel Baruch. And the ikir is Baraj Godel Misnasim Lumasasraf. What is this? Hakoilu b'bchinas mimata l'mayla b'chinas rina. Davening always starts off with night, not with day. It starts off with milmata l'mayla. Mata l'mayla means you're in a state of mata and you're going up. B'chinas rina. Lotzis minarte kagufu l'vushi nefesh habahamas. To go out of the sheath of the body and the garments of the animal soul, which often trap the person's light. A person cannot identify the angel that exists within them. So Psukkah de Zimra is basically you're chiseling away. As he says elsewhere, that Zimra comes from the word, in Hilchah Shabbos you have, HaZoymer. What's Zoymer? You know what Zoymer is? Weeding out the weeds. Psukkah de Zimra, the Psukkim, when you weed out the trap that traps the angel. I think I told you once there was a great sculpture. They asked him how he made his sculptures, how he invented these images. So he said, I didn't invent anything. I didn't sculpture out anything. I saw the angel trapped in the marble, and I chiseled away on the marble, and I set the angel free. So to be able to remove, the weed out all of the concealments. That's Psukkah de Zimra. If you don't start with Rina, there can't be the second stage, which is Simcha. You remain a recipient from the arousal of above. What does it mean you remain a recipient? How do you receive anything? So he says, never think that Oirein Sof Baruch Hu doesn't exist by you. Because of Isarusa de La'ela, the energy of the Infinite One comes into every mitzvah that you do. Ukediksiv lemani esa. Famous pasuk in Yeshaya, God says, I do it for me. Lemani esa. Don't think that when you don't have the Yonana, your mitzvahs don't have Ein Sof. Every mitzvah, every Torah has in it Ein Sof. The difference is, that's the difference. When you don't have the Rinana, you still have the Ein Sof in Torah and mitzvahs. Because God comes into every mitzvah. So you're a Bas Tziyun, you get everything. The question is, if you get it in a Pnimiyisdik way, or in a Chitzoniyisdik way. Boyu lefanav, here he teaches lefanav from the word Pnimiyis. If you want to experience in an internalized way, you first need the Rinana. Because then the mitzvah is answering your question. The Torah is answering your question. Without it, you still have it. A Jew does a mitzvah without any kavanas, without his boinus, without meditation, without preparation. He doesn't even know what it's chayas. The Gemara says you can force a Jew to eat matzah and he was right to the mitzvah of matzah. And that mitzvah has in it Ein Sof. That mitzvah, there's a connection with Hashem. But there's sometimes that's lamani esa. I do it for me. What says I do it for me? Lamani esa. It says about Golus, he says, even if you're not worthy of Geula, I'm still going to redeem you, not for your sake, for my sake. So he's teaching it here in Avodah. Look, sometimes God says, I know you're not worthy. I'm going to do it for my sake, because you're part of me. Lamani esa means, even if you don't want to connect to me, I still want to connect to you. So therefore, I come into the Torah mitzvahs. I'm there. Whenever you'll open up to it, you'll see I'm there. Lamani, yes, I'll do it for me. Because I'm part of you, we're connected. So I'm going to come into the Torah mitzvahs. But you're in the b'china of bastziyah. If you start off with the Lasata, which is Baal of Bernana, then there's the Ivdu as Hashem b'simcha, then you can experience much more the Ein Sof that comes into the Torah mitzvahs. Al levavecha. Okay, page 74. The first column, the line starts Ella Birinana. 16 lines from the bottom, the line starts Ella Birinana. So the distinction was made in summation between Tzion and Bas Tzion. There's Yimlech Hashem La'olam Alakayach Tzion L'der V'der Hallelujah versus Bas Tzion. Tzion represents when the person himself or herself arouses within themselves the inspiration and the motivation to enter into a serious relationship with Hashem, Avodas Hashem, and then the person becomes a tzion. The person becomes a tzion, which means a marker, a siman, a conduit for the Ein Sof that flows through them. Just like Torah and mitzvahs that we have are called a tzion for the Ein Sof that is communicated and within the Torah and mitzvahs. In fact, there's a famous expression in Zohar that Reb Shimon Bar Yochai said about himself, Ana simona ba'alma, meaning, I am merely a siman, a marker, a siman, a sign. Ana simona ba'alma, was he minimizing himself, or was he boasting about himself, or was he being humble about himself? Neither. He was saying the truth about himself. Sometimes he's not doing either. He's saying the truth. The truth is, I'm a siman. What's kind of a siman? Siman means, what's a siman? A siman means when you see the siman, it identifies something else. You say, like in Baba Metzia, by Shabbos Aveda, right? Something has a siman. So this is a marker that identifies the relationship between this object and the owner. Anas simana ba'alma means I'm a siman. When you look at me, what you see is the Ein Sof. What you see is Hashem. Because Shimon Bar Yochai's Metzias, his very identity, was a conduit for the divine energy that flows in everything. And there was no obstruction, there was nothing blocking the energy. So b'meila, that's when the Jew is in a state of tzion. Then you have the state of bas tzion, which is generally a state of spiritual or physical golus, when you're only a bas, meaning you have to receive the inspiration. And it's the difference between ish mazriya tchila, Yoledus Nekeva, Isha Mazras Tchili Yoledus Zachar. If the arousal begins with the feminine or the masculine, which spiritually means, if it begins with the male, here is Hashem, or the female, which means the Jewish people, Ish Mazriya Tchila Yoledus Nekeva, because you're more passive. Isha Mazras Tchila, Uletzion Ye Amar, Ish, Ve'ish Yulad Ba. He creates the relationship, he inspires, he triggers the relationship, and therefore, this is the state of Tziyah. And this is the idea of Ivdu as Hashem b'simcha b'oil of Birnana, when it starts off with Rinana. In other words, a person takes his own void and darkness and turns it into music. They use it as a catalyst, as a springboard for deep growth. That's b'oil of Birnana, which is the whole concept, he said, of Psukkah de Zimra, which is called music, singing. It's all about music, which leads up to the Birchas Krishma, which deals with the Malachim, which is again music, which will ultimately lead to the moment of Simcha, which is Krishma, which is then Krishma and Shemona Esra, where it's already the opposite direction, not Milmata Lamaila, but Milmaila Lamata. That is the avodah of you starting with Renana and then reaching Simcha, starting with the Isha, who triggers the arousal from the Ish, the Isarusa de Lasata that precedes the Isarusa de Laila. You're in a state of Tziyah. When you don't have the Rina, then you won't have the Gilui HaSimcha. The person remains anekeva, meaning remains recipient, a feminine recipient. Why? It's not like they don't receive anything. Lamani, Essa, he said, in every mitzvah, in every Torah, you have the whole Ein Sof. The question is, how cognizant can you be of it? How conscious can you be of it? Every mitzvah a Jew does has within it the whole Ein Sof. God himself is there, and he's there in his full intimacy, and he's there in his full essence. And that's why he said before, Mashpili liris b'shamayim u'ba'aretz, Gashmias is not lower than Ruchnias, he'll come down into the Gashmias. But because there was no avoida of Boyal Lefanav Bernana, there was no work, there was no sweat, there were no tears involved in the Hishtoikikus, the Renana, the Zimra, the yearning, the Nichsef of a Gamkol Sanafshi, which describes the avoida of the Malachim, therefore, it can't have a revealed impact on him. He can't experience it. As I said, you can't experience the answer if you never had the question. It doesn't have that meaning. It doesn't have that feeling. It doesn't have that impact. But even though the person may not be a keli for it, it doesn't mean he doesn't have it. Sometimes things come into us and they're there. One day we'll be able to open ourselves up to it. Some days we can't open ourselves up to it, but it's still there. But this would only be external. The boyul of fana, for it to be pnimiyus, is only if there's rinana. So that's the process of tzion versus bas tzion, and that's why yimloich Hashem la'olam, the process of Hashem's melucha, being revealed in space, and l'dor v'dor in time and space being the two properties that define our existence. Everything in our world is defined by time and space in one way or another. Nobody can extricate himself from the confinements of time and space. To be able to reveal the melucha of Hashem in time and space, you need the tzion, which is the structure of Torah and mitzvahs, which become the key of transition between infinite energy and finite energy, which is what every mitzvah and every inyan of Torah is. Now he goes to the next step, and here it comes all back to the beginning of the pasuk in Zechariah, Rani v'simchi bas tzion, because here we have a big contradiction against the whole Maamar. Bas tzion is a daughter of tzion, and how does the pasuk begin in Zechariah? Rani v'simchi bas tzion. You just said Rani v'simchi is the avodah of tzion. Starts off with a serus de lasata, uletzion yamer ish v'ish yulad ba. It starts off with the arousal from below, which is renana. You're bringing yourself in, and then you have the simcha. And here you're telling me bas tzion is Rani v'simchi. Rani v'simchi bas tzion kihinini ba. So here he introduces a whole next step. V'zeu, we go right to v'zeu sheba hanavi. You see again, page 74. The line starts ela b'renana. It's around 15 lines from the bottom, the right column. V'zeu sheba hakosav v'zeu sheba hanavi lenachem es b'nei Yisrael afilu b'zman hagolus. When you read the pasuk Rani v'simchi bas tzion, which is the Torah of Shabbos Chanukah, the prophet is coming to offer solace, to offer comfort to the Jewish people, even in the time of Golus. Zechariah was prophesizing about the time of Golus. So he says, Rani v'simchi bas tzion, this is a nechama. Rani v'simchi bas tzion is not just a prediction. It's not just a promise, and it's not just a pledge. It's actually profound words of comfort that the Navi is offering to Klal Yisrael in a time of Golus. Shenikra bas tzion v'lo tzion. Even though they are then defined as bas tzion, not tzion. Because what does Golus mean? The definition of Golus spiritually means you're alienated from yourself. You're in exile. When somebody is in exile, they're not in their own freedom, they're not in their own space. Spiritually and emotionally, what that would mean is that the person doesn't have the tools and the resources to inspire themselves because they're stuck. They're in a state of exile, they're in a state of alienation. So the only thing they can get is isarusa de la'ela, no isarusa de la'tata. They don't have the ability to sing themselves out of their situation, or to sing in tribute to the depth of their situation, to the opportunity of their situation. So therefore they're in a state of bas tzion, lemani essa. I'll do it for me, even though you're completely not ready for it. Because I'm connected with you, even though you're not connected with me consciously. So he says, even though they're in a state of basi and afal pikein Rani v'simchi, nonetheless there could be Rani, which is singing, and simchi, which is joy, rejoicing. V'hainu, and the pasuk continues, ki hineni ba v'shachanti b'soichich num Hashem, because I am arriving, I am coming, and I will dwell among you. Thus speaks God. And this is the opening of the Haftarah of Shabbos Chanukah, which the HaTanya asked. There seems no connection whatsoever with Chanukah. The connection begins in the next chapter when he speaks about a menorah that he saw, a golden menorah, and a whole description of it. This is a previous perek which doesn't seem connected at all. So he went into the whole discussion of Ivdu as Hashem b'simcha b'orelofon of Bernona, simcha in the morning, Renon at night, the avoid of malachim, the avoid of neshamas, mulmata l'mayla, mulmayla l'mata, malchus versus ein soif, Baruch Shem, V'ahavta, Noichi Misha, Noichi, Tzion, and Bas Tzion. So now he comes back and he says, the Navi says, even though it says Bas Tzion, there's still Rani v'simchi. You just contradicted yourself. You said before that without Isarusa de Lasata, without the arousal from below, you can't have the Simcha and Avodas Hashem, because Simcha comes from Gilui. Simcha comes from revelation, from expression. And for this you need avodah to turn you into a vessel that you could contain the gilui. If you're not a vessel, you can't contain the gilui. On this he answers, Kihinini ba. And he says, Kihine yashi sarusa de la'ela, shehi la'ela la'ela. So now you come to a third step. There's a sarusa de la'ela, we learned. There's a sarusa de la'ela that comes from above and you're a recipient. Naturally, you're not ready for it. Somebody gives you a gift, but you're not open for it. You're not ready. You didn't work for it. Work here doesn't just mean you didn't work, so the paycheck is free lunch. Work here, you see, generally in Gashmias, the paycheck is not connected to the work. Because you worked for a week, you're getting a paycheck. In Ruchnias, the paycheck is the work. The paycheck is the revelation of the work. The work opens yourself up to a reality that you receive as a result of the Avodah. It's not two separate things. Isarusa de la'ela comes from the Isarusa de l'sata. You set the stage to be able to experience things because you open yourself up to it. So you have Isarusa de la'ela without Isarusa de l'sata, which means Isaurus from above, without any precipitation and participation. Works both ways. From below, which is Ish Mazriyat Chila, the husband, so to speak, creates the whole arousal, the whole inspiration, and Yeledus Nekeva, you remain passive, you remain basi. You have a second step which is much deeper. The Isarusa de la'atzata brings forth the Isarusa de la'ela, which is Isha Mazras Tchila, Yeled Zachar. The Isha, the Jew, Knesset Yisrael, germinates first, creates the Zera, creates the relationship, creates the inspiration, and that brings forth the Simcha after the Renana. Now he says, there's Isarusa de la'ela, she la'ela la'ela, which is la'ela la'ela, meaning, Makum she'ein Isarusa de l'sata magas sham klal. It's a space where Isarusa de l'sata will not touch. It will not trigger, will not affect it. You have an Isarusa de la'ela, again, it's Aramaic, the word Isarusa is an Aramaic expression from Zoya. Isarusa means hisoirus, la'ela means milmaila. Isarusa de la'ela means arousal from above. Isarusa de l'sata means arousal, inspiration. Hisoirus means like hisoiri l'chadoidi, wake up. Arouse yourself, wake up, ignite yourself. It's inspiring yourself, either from above or from below. In life, there are two stages. Usually, in order to get inspiration, you need a sarusa de l'sata. You have to find it within yourself. You have to dig. And digging is a process, because when you dig, you're going to find rubble, dirt, debris, rocks, mud. And maybe if you dig long enough and hard enough, like Yitzchak, you'll find a be'er mayim chayim. And then it'll get stuffed up again. And you have to start digging again, and then you have to start fighting over the water. Which is really the depth of the story of Yitzchak, as the Baal HaTanya explains in Torah and told us about that story. So that would be Sarusa de l'sata. Sarusa de la'ela means that there are moments in life when you're given a spark. When you get a flow, it's like a gift. You get a flow of inspiration, an arousal, a consciousness, an awareness, an experience, an encounter that happens in your life. And it's not something you expected, and it's not something you prepared for. And both create different modalities in Avodas Hashem. The difference, of course, is Sarusa de la'ela doesn't last, because it comes from above. Sarusa de l'sata is your creation, so it's much deeper, it's more entrenched. That's all Isarusa de La'ela that comes from Isarusa de Lasata. But now, there's Isarusa de La'ela Shehi La'ela La'ela. La'ela La'ela means it's so above La'ela La'ela. It's not just La'ela. It's La'ela La'ela, like we say, La'ela Ula'ela min kol berchasa v'shiras. A whole year in Kaddish you say, La'ela min kol berchasa v'shirasa tushbechasa v'nechamasa damiram ba'oma v'miru amen. All the praises that you say about God, it's really La'ela. It's beyond that. I could say you're this and you're that and you're that, and here in Kaddish we say La'ela min kol berchasa v'shirasa. So why do you have to say La'ela Ula'ela? Suddenly it comes Yom Kippur, Yamim Neirayim. There are those who say it only by Ne'ilah. Suddenly La'ela Ula'ela. What's the difference? If La'ela is serious, so what's La'ela Ula'ela? La'ela is already La'ela. Unless you didn't mean it. Right? You didn't mean it. If you meant it, La'ela means beyond what I could say. No, La'ela Ula'ela. What's La'ela? In other words, it's even higher than being La'ela. Why is it higher than being La'ela? So he says it's Makam She'eni Sarusa de Lasata Magaz Sham Klam. It's a place that Sarusa de Lasata cannot touch, cannot effect. This is a La'ela Ula'ela. La'ela means it's beyond yourself, but as a result of your avodah, you open yourself up to the gift. La'ela means that what you do or what you don't do does not touch that reality. Does not. Hu b'chinas soivav kalam. Generally speaking, this relates to the madrega, to the reality that we call soivav kalam, referring, of course, to the words that are often used in these Maamarim, the distinction that already begins in Zohar between Mamala Kalalman and Soivav Kalalman. Mamala Kalalman is the divine energy that fills all of the worlds. In other words, it permeates, it penetrates, it's internalized within every creature, within every being, within every existence in an internalized fashion. Just like the soul and the body, every organ, every limb gets a unique energy from the neshama. The eye has a unique chemistry to be able to contain the power of vision, and the ear has a unique chemistry to be able to contain the power of hearing, and so forth. Movement, motion, digestion, brain power. The brain is formed in a way. Its tissue, its makeup is one that it's a keli for a certain type of oir and chiyus. So Mamala Kalalman is the way the Rebbeinu Shalom fills every frog and every salamander and every insect and every flower and every nivra, Daimim Tzemeh Chaim Medaber, according to its individual quality. And then you have Soivav Kalalman, which literally means he surrounds the worlds or he encompasses the worlds, which basically relates to an energy that transcends the individual property of the world. It's not custom made to the finite chemistry and properties of every nivra, and therefore the relationship between the created being and the divine energy of Soivav Kalalman is not one that is reciprocal. Because even if a person opens himself up in the deepest way, he won't be able to touch Soivav Kalalman. Because Soivav Kalalman is not an energy that's suited to his grasp, to his imagination. Mamala Kalalman.
So the La'ela is the Soivav.
So La'ela is the Soivav Kalalman. Umisham yumshach gilui shefa ve'erin seif baruch hu gam b'bchinas bas. And from there you can have a flow and a revelation of the infinite energy, even in a state of bas. So when we said that the only way you could feel Oir Hashem in your nefesh is if you began with Boyu Lefon of Birnana, you began with Hisarusa de Lasata, you refined yourself, you worked it out in yourself to come close to Hashem till you became a keli, a vessel, for the light of Hashem that dwells in you through Torah and mitzvahs. That is certainly true when you're dealing with, generally speaking, when you're dealing with Mamalik Kalalman. In other words, where you're opening yourself up to the energy allows you to experience the energy. And you could open yourself up to it. You could remove your blockages. You could deal with your void. You could sing yourself out of your darkness. And that Renana allows you to experience the Simcha. Because this is a type of oir that could be revealed when there is a vessel that is a keli for it, because you are a keli for it. It's just the keli could be stuffed. The keli could be plugged. When you're dealing with the oir that comes from a place that Einis Harusa de Lasata Magaz Sham Klal, so then, in a paradoxical way, this oir doesn't need you to be a keli. You know why? Because the higher, even the highest keli is still not a keli for this. Even the highest keli is not a keli for this. So in a paradoxical way, being a keli doesn't make you closer to this type of oir. Why? Because it's an oir that's not suitable to kelim. It's completely Ein Sof. That's what Sof of Kalalman means. So even though the keli, you made yourself a keli, you made yourself a keli for what? You can make yourself a keli, a 7-ounce cup could take 7 ounces of water. Cleaning out a 7-ounce cup won't make it more susceptible for Niagara Falls than a keli that's stuffed. You understand what I'm saying? If a keli that's stuffed, it's plugged up, it's full of dirt and then pebbles and earth, you're not going to get anything inside. If it's covered over, it's plugged up. You open it up, so what do? You can fill it up with a cup of coffee. When it comes to the Niagara Falls, I'm sorry to say, you'll clean out your cup beautifully. You'll make sure that you'll put it by the falls. And whoa. Why? Because it's not a type of hashpah. You ever try putting a cup by the Niagara Falls? It's not the best idea. Why? It's not a type of hashpah that's madud, that's measured, that's commensurate with the keli. So being a keli for it doesn't actually make you closer to it. And therefore, here is the healing part of it. And therefore, not being a keli doesn't deprive you from it. Not being a keli doesn't make you any further from it. Which means that there's a state of wholesomeness, of well-being, of a relationship with God in Sof of Kalalman, that your situation today, consciously, is loy maila v'loy moirit. And just like it's loy maila, it's therefore loy moirit. Because opening yourself up to it doesn't make you closer to it. Because it's not something that the you will grasp. It's something that's beyond the you. So therefore, when the you is not present, it won't grasp it any less.
So this is a gift of the Rebbe Shalom. I'm going
Right.
to bypass your keli basic. I'm going to go straight to your pneumius, even though your kelim.
In other words, when we say a gift, the gift is always here. In other words, in the relationship with Sof of Kalalman, that relationship on that level, the keli is loy maila and loy moirit. That's the p'china of Sof versus Mamale. What in Mamale, you can't say that. In Mamale, befeidish not. In Mamale, it's all about the keli. If somebody closes their eyes, they're not going to be able to see. And if somebody doesn't clean up their body, they won't be able to feel their energy. If somebody eats horrible food, they're going to block off their natural, amazing energy. Why? Because they're plugging up their system. You're just plugging up your system physically, in terms of morally, emotionally, spiritually. So don't underestimate the Maamar till now. In other words, generally in life, you have to open yourself up to what's available to you. Here he's introducing a special nechama that comes in Golus. That mitzad la'ela ule, that's why it's la'ela ule. La'ela means it's beyond you. You can't just grasp it. It's a process. It's a rusa de l'sata will bring us a rusa de la'ela. But it's a la'ela that you can talk about. It's the next stage. I do this and I get this. Like the Gemara says, Yagaita umatsasa. A mitzvah is always something that you don't work for. Right? The Gemara says, mitzvah bab hasachadas. But through your yagiyah, you're going to get even that which is beyond your yagiyah. That's Yagaita umatsasa. Here it's a different p'china.
If he's saying that, parenthetically, that in Golis we're Bas Tzion, that's the Midah, but he gives us really potentially New Havana and Al Naras Babel. Sham Yashavnu B'chenu Zecher es Tzion. Amula Gevein that we were really Tzion. Now we're Bas Tzion.
Exactly.
Eif Noshir.
Very beautiful. Beautiful. You hear what he's saying? So you have here a situation where even when you're dealing with a matzav of Bas Tzion, he says Rani v'simchi, because it's la'ela ula'ela. What's la'ela ula'ela? That it's beyond being la'ela. La'ela ula'ela means don't call it la'ela. It doesn't have to be la'ela. La'ela means it's high, something that's above. You have to be a keli for it. You can't just be dirty. Something that's la'ela ula'ela, you could be dirty. You know why? Because being clean is not making you any close. I'll express it in Yiddish the way one of the one of the Rebbe Chaim Fagin. He was a big teacher of the Baal HaTanya's Maamar. He was killed in the war. So his Talmidim say over when he would speak about this to explain the Baal HaTanya's Vart here, he would say, listen, it's a Yiddish expression that I'll translate. He says, Dorten, wo Edelkeit is a Keli, is Grobkeit a Stille. Wo Edelkeit is nicht kein Keli, is Grobkeit nicht kein Stille. Where refinement makes you a vessel, coarseness destroys you as a vessel. But where refinement does not turn you into a vessel, coarseness does not obstruct the vessel. The fact that the person is not open does not deprive him from the energy, because being open doesn't make him closer to the energy. Because you're dealing here with an energy of Ein Sof Mamish that I anyway can't wrap my brain around. So even if I work and I work it out, to give an example, can you climb to the top of the Himalayas, to Mount Everest? Not everybody. But some people, you train and you're fit and you're skilled and you get the proper gear and you're motivated. You can climb 20,000 feet, 32,000 feet, maybe Sakonas Nefashas, but some people can do it. So some people will climb 100 yards, yeah. Some people climb up one staircase and they're out of breath, right? And some people could climb, could jump the 10th staircase, they're not out of breath, v'chuli. And some people could climb Mount Everest. So the more energy you have, the healthier you are, the more you train, the more you work out, whatever it is, you're capable of all that. But now is another question. What about going to the moon? What about going to the moon? We don't even have to go to the moon. What about flying 30,000 feet above? Here, the one who's on the top of the mountain, you don't say, if you work out more, you'll be able to get to the moon. Here you need a spaceship. It's not something that with your koiches you can do it. B'meila, because of that, even somebody who's obese can also get into the plane, can also get into the spaceship and be taken there, because you're being taken there. Now, the mashal is not mamash like the nimshal, because in the mashal it's acts. A plane is coming and lifting you up. Here we're talking about states of self. We're not talking here about an act, a gesture. It's a state of self. In other words, mitzad the state of isarusa de la'ela, what he says, there is lechatchila no contradiction. The person is always in a wholesome state of a very deep relationship, even without cognizance. And that relationship is always available, because nothing can destroy it. Because it's not something that the person can ultimately define. Why is that so important? Because this is the only place that abuse cannot take away. If you would have control over it, in terms of by opening yourself up to it, you have it more. And by not opening yourself up to it, you have it less, it means that it could be manipulated. It could be manipulated by yourself and it could be manipulated by others. The power of this is nobody can ever manipulate it, because no one has access to it. Because it's not something that you get. It's not you get it, it gets you. You don't have it, it has you. It always remains there in a state which is completely immune to any type of damage, any type of tarnishing. Even very severe damage, emotional damage that a person has, and you would think, you look at a certain person, they look at themselves, they say, I'm destroyed, there's nothing left to me. Why? Because whenever I think about myself, all I feel is hellish bleakness, there's nothing else to me, which is a very deep form of trauma or deep form of negative self-image. And in other words, any way in which I grasp myself and I become self-aware, there's always only darkness. The point here the Alter Rebbe is making is, for this you have to go out of self-awareness. If you're going to talk about self-awareness, you're right. Here it's not about self-awareness, and your awareness will not sensitize you more to it. And therefore your lack of awareness, or your bleak self-awareness, will not take that away from you. It will always be there. And because it's always there, you can trust it. There's nothing you can do. There's no mistake in the world that you can make that will undermine it. If you want to connect this to the Maamar we learned before Rosh Hashanah, Shir Hamalas mi Ma'amakim Krosicha Hashem, where he touched Afal Pi Shechata Yisraelu. Not that even though you're a Chayta, you're a Jew. Afal Pi Shechata Yisraelu, even though Chata in the place of Yisrael there was no Chait. And he says all the psukim about Kares and all the Maamar Chazal about Kares, you get cut off from Hashem, is only about Yaakov, never about Yisrael. Yisrael, he says, is Yachid, Echad, the Meyuchad, and he connects it to Seiv of Kalam and Mamale. And this is one of the big Yisaitis of Teres Baal Shem Tov in general, that there is a relationship that's never, ever, ever damaged, psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually. And there's nothing that the person could say, oh, if you knew about my life, you would know that it's damaged. I'm the exception. But generally by Jews, whoever you meet, I'm worse than everybody else. This is the humility of Jews. Everybody else not, but me, if you would know what I did, forget about it. That's not the case. And this really requires, in a way, when you call yourself damaged, it's a form of arrogance. When people call themselves damaged, it's a form of arrogance. Why? Because they think they have all control over their soul. He says you don't have all control over your soul. God also has a part in your soul. Don't be so arrogant to think that you're so damaged. God is also part of your life, and don't turn him into damaged. You want to call yourself damaged, Mela, but what about the chelik elekami mal? Why are you calling that damaged? A little respect. A little respect. So sometimes when we put ourselves down, it sounds very humble. It's really a form of arrogance. Yeah. Yeah. In Golus, you need to access it. Very good question. It's always there, but in Golus, you need to access it. When you have Tziyah, and you don't have to go there. Right? Listen.
You have to access what?
You have to access this Isarusa de La'ela La'ela.
Soiva?
Yeah, Soiva.
You said before you can't access it. You have
No, you have to talk about it. You have to address it. You have to tune into it. Tune in. You're right, not access. But tune into it. Let it access you. Let it access you. The word from the Chaim Tzanze, the Heilige Divrei Chaim, he once said, after Tishrei, he was talking about Tishrei, they asked him, what did we accomplish in Tishrei? Doesn't feel like we accomplished anything. You know, you do a whole Tishrei and this, you finish some Chastayra. Okay, another Tishrei bites the dust, Mereishis Hashana Adachar Shana, Kimedu B'La'el. So he said that there was once a man who got lost in the desert. He got lost, all the Jewish stories, you go to a desert and you get lost. Today we don't get lost in the desert, today we get lost in the iPhone. But you get lost. And he can't find his way out, and he's searching and searching again. 3 days he's lost. Suddenly he sees a man with a lantern. So he goes over to him and he says, thank God, tell me how to get out of this crazy place. The guy says, how long are you lost? He says, 3 days. He says, I'm lost for 3 months. I can't tell you how to go. So he says, could you help me in any way? He says, one way I can help you. I can tell you where not to go. I took already so many wrong paths, I can tell you where not to go. I can tell you where not to go. So this is one half of the story. So he said sometimes people give advice in life. They have a lot of advice, but all they can tell you is where not to go. Nobody can tell you where to go, really. People can tell you where not to go. Then he said, so the man asked him, so why do you have a lantern? What does it help a lantern? You don't even know where to, you don't even have a derech. If you have a derech, you need light. You don't even know where to go. You just stay in one place. So he says, the reason I lit a lantern is because I don't know the way out. But by lighting a lantern, I hope somebody else will see me and schlep me out of here. The Rebbe Chaim said all we tried to do was light a lantern. That's what we did. He says, first of all, so the other person looked at him and said, let's hold hands and search for a new way together, and hopefully somebody will be able to find us. So it's really a metaphor for life. Sometimes you have to light a lantern not for you to be able to access it, it's for somebody else to be able, for this to be able to access you. So you're right, in Golus you need it. Listen, there's no mitzvah for a person to become an alcoholic, to go into recovery, to take it seriously, to break down, and then to heal, and to become a great person. But nobody says you should sin and become a Baal Tshuva, and then you'll become greater than a tzaddik. That's not a derech ha'avodah. But if something is broken, and then you fix it, it's much deeper than something that was never broken. So you're right, in Golus accesses this b'china, because in Golus, you need this b'china, you need this in you need this nikud. V'zeh yil asid lover. This b'china la'elo is what's going to be present in a manifested way in the future. It's not that the world is going to heal in the future. It's that in the future we're going to find out that it was never broken. It's not that you're going to heal. It's that you're going to find out that you were never broken. You're going to find out that in this space you never sinned. You never made a mistake. You were never unwholesome. On the contrary, the reason you made mistakes, the reason you sinned is because you didn't know about this place in yourself. You thought you were so broken, and therefore you had to do what you had to do to compensate for your brokenness. When you realize how wholesome you are, then you don't have to do all these things. So you suddenly realize that all your mistakes came because you didn't know who you were. So how do you heal from these mistakes? Not by saying, I'm not going to make the mistakes again. You never made these mistakes. You just didn't know who you were. The you never really made it. That's going to be the Gili La'asid Lava. It's a different type of healing. The pasuk says by Mashiach in Yeshaya Yud Aleph, right? Chapter 11 of Yeshaya. We have Torah V'Achron Shel Pesach. It says as Hine Yaskil Avdi, my servant will be wise. Yarum v'nisa v'gavoya ma'oid. V'nochal of Ruach Hashem, it says v'hirichoi b'yiris Hashem. What are all these terms about Mashiach? Yarum v'nisa v'gava ma'oid. So he teaches that he's going to tune into this Sarusa de la'elo yarum v'nisa v'gava ma'oid. Is the Sarusa la'elo la'ela, which is beyond that which can be destroyed through a person's density or a person's coarseness. V'nachal of Ruach Hashem v'hirichoi, which Reach always represents the Ur Makif, as we learned by Yitzchak and Esav. V'zeu, this is a deeper pshat, u'letzion ye'omar ish v'ish yulad ba, pirush, she'yakol b'bchinas ish afilu b'bchinas bas. Why did it say ish twice? So he says as follows. Ish yivolid ba, ish yulad ba is yoled zachar. So usually when you have isha mazras tchila, you have yoled zachar. When you have ish mazriat tchila, it's yoled nekeva. Here the chiddush is that it's going to be l'tziyin ya'amar ish v'ish yulad ba. In other words, there's two types of ish. There's the ish that comes from isha mazras tchila, and then there's the ish that comes from even when you're in a state of bas, it's ish mazriat chil, it's still going to be an ish. Why? Because you'll have the sarusa de la'ela ula'ela. U'letziyon yamar, then la'asid lovay, ish v'ish yulad ba, even in the bas tziyon, there will be that profound experience of Ein Sof, because the keli, the lack of the keli is not an obstruction to it. V'hainu mipnei, the pasuk continues. U'letziyon yamar ish v'ish yulad ba v'hu yichayneneha elyon. Mipnei kihu yichayneneha elyon sha'mochen yi'oir elyon ma'id naila. The yichayneneha, the establishment of tzin is going to come from elyon. Elyon means an oir elyon, which is la'ela ula'ela. That's why the pasuk says, Rani v'simchi ba'siyin v'zeu. Ki hinini ba v'shachanti b'soichich, hinini ani ba'atzmi kivayachal. Oirein soif baruch hu mamash. Rani v'simchi ba'siyin, you're a ba'siyin. How can there be Rani v'simchi? The answer is, Ki hinini ba. I am coming here. Who's I? Me, myself. Because it's me, myself, so therefore even the Bas-Tzion can experience the full revelation of the Ein Sof, even though you're only a Bas-Tzion, you're in Golus, you're in a state of concealment, you're not inspired, there's no Isarusa de Lasata, you could still experience Rani v'Simchi. We said you can't have Simcha if there's no Rani, and Rani has to come from your own ascent, and in the time of Golus, a person completely feels alienated. So here is the point. Sometimes in a situation, you're not interested. You're not even interested in the fact. You're not inspired. You're not even interested in being interested. You understand, right? Sometimes you're not interested, but you're interested in being interested. Sometimes you're not even interested in that. You're not interested, b'chlal. You're not inspired. You're not even searching to search. You're not even bothered by the fact that you're not bothered. Sometimes you're not bothered, but that bothers you. Sometimes you're not bothered by the fact that you're not bothered. You're not even not bothered by the fact that you're not bothered by the fact that you're not bothered. And you could do it another few times. You really don't care. You just don't care. You're completely shut down. That's a state of gullus. You're shut down to yourself. You're not experiencing yourself. You're shut down. So what's shayach here? Rani, what's shayach here? Simchi, wake up. Wake up, work on yourself, and for this you need blood, sweat, and tears. You have to work very hard. So he says you should always know that this is only your perspective of yourself. But you should understand that the Navi is saying, you should know in every matzav, there's a pchin of kihinini ba, v'shachanti b'soichich and Hashem, that my deepest intimate self is always there, and there's nothing you can do to block it out, because it's not something that you could control, because even if you would be open to it, you wouldn't be open to it. This defines you, you don't define it, and that means your well-being is always available to you. There's no such a matzav that your well-being is not available to you. It's always there, and not just well-being, but a deepest relationship with your wellness, with yourself. If this is the case, now the question is, could Chazal start off the Haftarah of Shabbos Chanukah with any posik, but Rani v'simchi basiyah? So he says, V'zehu, this is the pshat, in Yener Chanukah shetiknu al Pesach habayis mibachutz. The Gemara says in Shabbos Chaf Aleph that you have to light Chanukah candles by the entrance of the house outside. What's mibachutz? As we'll see in a moment, machlokes Rashi Tosfos. Rashi says mibachutz means in the courtyard. The houses were open to chutzes, to courtyards, which would be like outside lobby, so to speak, the courtyards, and that's where you lit the menorah. Tosfos says no. Pesach Beisim mibachutz means outside of the courtyard by the Shusar Rabbin, going into the public domain. Not only the courtyard that you share with your neighbors, but mamish Shusar Rabbin, the public domain. Unless your house is by the Shusar Rabbin, you put it by the door of your house. What's the connection? He says this is the connection. We say in Hallel, open up the doors of justice for me. Pischu li shari tzedek, avoy vom oideka. So he says, Piru shari tzedek heim p'chines mavoy liyus p'chines tzidkoscha yiranenu shal dovaz atiknu p'suke de zimra. A Pesach, an opening, means a way to enter. In Hallel we say, open up for me the entrance, the door of shari tzedek. Shari tzedek is the portals that will bring me to tzedek. What's tzedek? We go back to the beginning now. V'tzitkoscha yiranenu. Tzedek is Malchus. It's the song, the hishtoikakos, the craving that's created during Psuke de Zimra when you think about the Gulf. V'tzitkoscha yiranenu. That's Sharei Tzedek. Open up that door for me. But that's if you're in the door or you want to come into the door. Ach mishu b'chutz lepesach. The person who says, I don't want to come in. Here's the door. I'm not interested. That's pshat al Pesach beisim b'chutz. Sometimes, yeah, you have a person, right? They want to come in. They don't know how. So you say, Pischuli shari tzedek, open up the door. Show me a way. That's what Psukkah de Zimra is. Let me sing my void. I don't know the way out, but I could sing about it. I could yearn. And yearning is powerful. I'm not interested in the door. I don't want to come in. I'm outside. Al Pesach beisim b'chutz. I don't want to come in. Ein lepchinas renan of ispilus alev. I'm not singing. I'm not musical. I don't have ispilus alev. I'm not emoting. Loi mipnei zeh yeh avid chas v'shalom gilu yerinsei baruch hu nafshay. Listen how a master speaks. Not because of this are we going to say that the infinite energy has been lost on his soul, just because he refuses to even look at the entrance of the door. They will masaken to light a fire with oil and light where? On the door, by the door, outside the door, not inside the door. So that even outside of the door, meaning even the person who's not ready to come into the Sharei Tzedek of its Tzidkas Chiranenu, Yumshach Eirein Sei Baruch Hu B'chol Mitzvah Sha'oiseh V'Torah Shaloim. He should know that in every mitzvah that he does, and every shtikol Torah that he learns, he accesses the infinite light of Hashem, as he said before, Lamani Esa, Hadlakas Ner Chanukah basically represents that the fire can be lit even in the soul and the heart and the psyche of the person outside. Hashem says, take the oil, take the flame, and don't keep it inside. Go al Pesach beisim b'chutz. So you see somebody who's completely detached, completely alienated. He himself tells you, I'm alienated. And you say, you see? He himself is not interested, right? He says, Loi mipnei zeh ya'avet eirin sei baruch hu nafshay. Chazal say, go and take the candle, take the fire, and light it up outside. That's where the Eirein Sof is going to come out. Shittas HaTosfos is Rishus HaRabim, and that's the halacha. Dahainu b'Rishus HaRabim mamish mokem haklipus l'hamchach hashaychel l'nahir. Chotzer is still a semi Rishus HaYachid. Chazal turned it into a Rishus HaRabim with Eruvi Chatzeres. Here we're saying Mamash Rishus HaRabim. Rishus HaRabim means a public domain, place of klippos, meaning you have all types of elements in Rishus HaRabim. It's not just, 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven in Monsey. It's a real Rishus HaRabim. To transform the darkness into light. And that's why right after Rani v'simchi batzion, the next pasuk says, "V'nilvu goyim rabim el Hashem." Many nations will come and accompany God. In other words, as a result of Rani v'simchi batzion, even the Rishus HaRabim, represented by goyim rabim, are attracted and could be ignited and inspired.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.